a definition of the green economy that might not be compatible with human rights. Since there's no one from UNEP here, that's the first point to make, that perhaps UNEP needs to be brought into the discussion concerning the green economy and human rights. UNEP has been on the record as stating that the economy must be situated within and respect the biosphere, that healthy ecosystems are the backbone of economic and human well-being, and its executive director, Kim Steiner, is on the record as stating, and I quote, that there's a fundamental link between healthy ecosystems and human rights, end of quote. So where is UNEP in the discussion on rights at risk in the green economy? And this is, of course, no criticism to the organizers. This is a question to the UN Environment Program as to its ability to engage in this discussion. And the final point here is that as we think about how to reform or change UNEP in the institutional framework and the creation of any new institution, rights will play a very important role in defining the mandate and will provide guidance to those organizations as they follow up and implement whatever comes out from this Rio+20 process.
Thank you. I'm quite new to the Rio+20 process. This has only been the second meeting I've been to, but just an observation. This meeting, of course, is about rights in the context of the green economy, and the kind of framing of the critique is facilitated, in a sense, by the fact that rights are under pressure in the green economy section, because you can kind of pit human rights against the rights of global multinational corporations or economic globalization. But I think it's really important to echo Joseph's point, that there is, in a sense, a much more let me put it this way, a much more commonplace watering down of rights throughout the text. So let's not allow this division into working groups 1 and 2 prevent an integrated critique. So there was this morning discussion of whether it was okay to mention the Universal Declaration of Human Rights next to the UN Charter in Part 1. Language on Principle 10, which contains fundamental enabling rights for all other rights, is not terribly strong at the moment and needs to be strengthened. Every time the idea of democracy or democratic societies is mentioned, there's a pushback. So I think we all need to bear in mind that we shouldn't only have an economic critique of the watering down of rights, but we need to have, in a sense, a people-centred, democratic in the very loose sense of the word, critique across the board. And if we could see much closer integration across the human rights critiques of the Rio+20 language, and particularly integrating Principle 10 much more closely in that critique, I think we would collectively be much stronger and be much louder in securing a more positive outcome. Thank you.
And that is our goal, right? That is our goal, to secure a more positive outcome. And I think that, you know, part of doing this, and it was a packed room. Of course, we understand that negotiations start in 25 minutes. People need to eat, so some people have drifted off. But the hope is that, from the organizers certainly, is that people use the opportunity. We're in that room. This is a privileged position to be there, right? As the negotiators are taking their position, as states are giving their voice and in the negotiations. Not many people are, you know, as a percentage of the population that will be impacted by Rio, we are in a very privileged position. And I think there are obligations that go along with that. So, to that end, I mean, use the information that you've heard here. We need to speak to these negotiators. Many of them actually have quite a bit more autonomy than we realize, and because Rio is not a typical kind of negotiation. And so I think it falls into a bit of a gray zone with some states. Of course, we also know that when it is about financial issues, that's kind of a red line, and it goes right back to capital often. But keep going.
I just want to add something to what Marcus said. In defense of UNEP, I do not know how it is right now, the situation at UNEP, but I remember in 2002 at the Johannesburg conference, where UNEP was instrumental on the human rights language in the document, in the Johannesburg plan of implementation. They put together with the Office of the High Commissioner on Human Rights beforehand an expert group which produced material on the link between human rights and environment and environmental protection. And in the negotiations, the sentence, the paragraph that we had on this was maybe the most embattled one in Johannesburg. That's not very well known. And at the time, Mary Robinson had to be very courageous to speak out on this, and ultimately it was not deleted. We got it in, but in an awfully convoluted way. It talks about the potential link or relationship, as if everybody doesn't know that there definitely is a link. But UNEP was, and also the delegate of UNEP was in those discussions very strong on it. I do not know how it is right now, but there's at least one very positive story to tell. Thank you.
We do need positive stories.
One of the things that I'm concerned about is that during the whole Rio process, all three Rios, that they pushed for these principles, and these principles are being separated and segmented out of the document. And no one has mentioned today the precautionary principle. But that affects each and every one of us, that it's stating basically that if something is dangerous, to err on the side of safety for human life. When they're talking about biomass and manipulating genetic material, they're talking about things that affect each and every one of us. They're talking about manipulating the sugars that are in plants, and they're talking about connecting that with synthetic biology, and no matter where they put that, it has not been tested to the point that we know how safe it is. Once they let Pandora's pest out of the box, it's very hard or almost impossible to get it back in. So I'm saying that we need to also be pushing for them. When we're talking about human rights, we're talking about the human right to be alive. And if they're talking about manipulating DNA, RNA, which all of us have in order to live, this is a very serious matter. So we shouldn't let them dilute it to have us focusing on economics. They're having us focus on food production, everything. If they manipulate DNA and RNA and they pair it with synthetic biology, each one of us are in trouble, and we need to talk about that. We need to talk about governments who are supposed to represent people not doing their job. So I agree with him. It's almost time to take it to the street, because they're playing a very serious game, and we need to have very serious pushback.
Okay, we do have to wrap up. I want to give Yokeling some time, but we have one last comment.
Yes, I think that we have to do something stronger, because, for instance, we have not received already an answer, an official answer, or any answer to the letter that we signed all together. And when I asked I'm from Italy, so to our governmental person that is also one of the co-chairs, and he's pushing, and he's asking also to the Bureau, but we have, I think that we cannot accept to continue and to work in that manner, to negotiate directly with the different governments. Perhaps some, as he told before, or making also the copies of the letter, distributing again, because it seems that some governments, governmental people, they don't see it, they feel like not to consider, not to remember, and at the same time perhaps to work, to push in an official manner, or working to the documents and sending and distributing, or organizing from tomorrow, from the day after tomorrow, our parallel sessions. Not staying near them is not useful, but finding altogether the way in order to be listened, because I think that this kind of work that we are doing is not so strong as we can. I don't know what you think, but this is the perception of this.
Well, I'm very pleased that you took the mic, because I do think that we have to ask ourselves collectively, but individually, when is enough? How far will we allow this to go? Because the implications to what is being presented and the way that it's going are huge, on people that have no voice, that are already marginalized. We are the ones that are here, and if we go along quietly, even if we think we're pushing them with a letter, or if they're not answering, then it's a tree falling in the forest, right? Is it having an impact? We need to be demanding that they respond to very clear. This is not coming out of, and it is even within the UN itself, right? These are letters and positions that are coming from officers of the UN, as well as over 1,000 people from civil society. For the water letter, we had over 400 organizations from around the world, to keep water as a human right, sanitation as a human right. And these are major organizations. So we have to ask ourselves, as this is the beginning of the second week, this is as probably the most important week, because if we cannot shift the discussion here, this round of negotiations, this week and next, then we are into Rio already, and then it becomes a much more political with heads of state, and even the possibility that they pull out a Copenhagen Accord kind of text and money on the table, or all these twisting of the process. So it's up to us to show them that we are vigilant, that we will have people in the streets in Rio, that we are going to put pressure back in capital, and that we're not going to stand for no answer to very legitimate questions that we have on the table. So I think that we have to look for ways to bring this up continuously in the days ahead of us. I'm going to ask Yo Kling now to sum up, and then I just thank you all for being here and taking the time.
Thank you very much, and thank you to everyone. I think this actually shows that we do need more time for this kind of discussion. Because we, as much as governments, can be very trapped in busy, and then everything is very fragmented and split up. And so I think this is a good reminder. That's why we wanted to do this at this point. And then the next roundtable hopefully will take us to the next step. I think for a start, we were just talking about it yesterday. Like the general letter on human rights had now more than 1,000